Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace reporting live here at Lincoln Center here in New York City. Tonight, Cuban pianist Elio Villafranca is playing with his quartet, and during this performance, a very special performance that Lincoln Center has hosted and produced, are allowing music fans to come out and interact with the musicians and enjoy the music during this COVID-19 pandemic. Elio tonight is performing with his quartet featuring the great Francisco Mela on drums, but he's also celebrating the fact that he has a brand new children's book which he wrote during this pandemic entitled Who Ate the Pie? I had a chance to sit down with him for a few minutes to reflect on what he's been doing during this pandemic, what inspired him to write this book, and we also sit down and talk about one of his heroes who passed away during this COVID-19 pandemic, a.k.a. jazz master and legendary pianist McCoy Tyner. And we also sit down and analyze and talk about some of the Cuban influences and how they've crept up in his piano style as well as his composition writing. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of this special performance featuring Cuban pianist Elio Villafranca live here at Lincoln Center, part of the Pace Report here in New York City. Elio, congratulations on Who Ate the Pie. Who inspired you to write this children's book?
A friend, now a friend who was having a child, and then I wanted to dedicate that to her, to her child. So then when the pandemic happened, I was doing anything. So basically, I decided, oh, this is the right time to put it together because I had it for a long time in the oven, as you say. And then once the pandemic hit, I found that was the perfect timing to do it and put the time into it. Yeah.
You know, this is one of the first concerts that you've performed since this whole pandemic has taken place. And here at Lincoln Center, they have gone above and beyond to make sure that the fans of this music are safe. How are you feeling right now, and how have you been holding up for the last 6 months?
I feel great. I feel grateful. First of all, that Lincoln Center to inviting me to do this, and also I feel great because I feel all the community of musicians that we all trying really hard to come back and to continue to be creative or continue to to do something in this particular time that is so challenging for all of us. I feel really motivated to write music, to create new things, new projects. And I think the musicians that my friends or everybody in the community is very striving. They're very striving and trying to figuring these things out. So it's a very interesting time.
Now, tonight, the music that you're playing, I understand, was written and commissioned for a particular program.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing music that I've been kind of like, some of them have been created in this particular time, challenging time. I got a commission recently by Jazz Coalition, and I might play some of the music from that particular grant. But it's time that I've been kind of like, self-reflecting and putting music together that kind of like reflects the time that we're in today.
You know, I want to reflect on one of your musical heroes who passed away during this pandemic, the great McCoy Tyner. Tell me about how you got to understand or first learned about McCoy and his music, and what was it about his piano playing that influenced you to call him one of your heroes?
Well, McCoy is a hero to all of us, basically, to every musician, not only pianist, but for any other instrument. I got to start first be influenced by McCoy Tyner since I was in Cuba. In Cuba, I was trained in classical music, but when the jazz got into me, like when I started hearing like people listening to jazz, of course, John Coltrane was one of those people who really got into Cuba. Like not every jazz musician got into our community in Cuba, but John Coltrane was one of those. And then, of course, with his record with McCoy Tyner, were iconic in our community. And right away, his whole way of playing, the way of approaching music was so different and so innovative and so forward, that it just influences us in a really profound way.
He took the piano, and his approach was very percussive in his playing, and Cuban piano players, and it's in your guys' DNA, that there's a percussive nature of how you play. Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. Cuban pianism is mainly based on rhythm, because all the tradition that we have on Afro-Cuban music and all the heritage that we have from Africa, it just got infiltrated into every aspect in our life, not only in the music, but everything. And it's very well reflected in the music. You can see, Chucho Valdes from Gonzalo Rubalcabas, who were the two people who first, or Emiliano Salvador, or Frank Emilio, and Lili Martinez, and Peruchin. Those are the pianists who basically influenced me being in Cuba. And then when you listen to McCoy Tyner or even, Monk and all that, their Duke Ellington, the approach is so percussive and so rhythmic. We found a lot of similitudes in their playing, and then that's why it just impacts us in a very deep way.
I find that your background is extremely interesting because you didn't start off playing the piano. You started off playing guitar.
I started playing guitar, exactly. That was my first instrument. And I owned my guitar until recently, who I gave it away to a friend who needed a guitar. I wanted to be a guitar player, not a piano player. I wanted to be a guitar player, but when I did the audition to go to the school, there was no more rooms for guitarists. So then there was only left percussion and other instruments, and I decided to go in percussion because then I went into percussion to music school, so I had degrees in percussion and then in composition and in piano. But percussion was my second instrument that I picked. It was classical music then, but it was still percussion. And then from that on, I discovered the piano, and then I fall in love with the piano, and then so on. I started playing rock and roll. I wasn't playing jazz. And then I was playing rock and roll in piano. And then finally, somebody invited me to go to the jazz festival in Havana, and that's when I had the opportunity to see jazz or hear jazz for the first time. And the musician who basically I experienced that got me that interest that I have in jazz was Richie Cole, who was not a pianist, saxophonist, alto saxophonist. And when I saw him perform, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then from that point on, it was over. And then that was jazz all the way through.
What do you take more pride in? Because I understand that you really, really take your composition and writing very serious, but there's got to be a fine mix between you playing the piano and writing. Are they hard, or do you find that they go mesh hand in hand?
They go hand in hand. I mean, they go hand in hand. I mean, you look at the story of the history of all composers. Once again, I come from a classical vein. You listen to Rachmaninoff or Liszt or Chopin or Schumann or they all were amazing composers, but they were also amazing pianists. And you're thinking about Duke Ellington, and you're thinking about Monk, and you're thinking about Herbie, and you're thinking about Chick Corea, you're thinking about all these people. Fred Garland. I mean, everybody that you can think of. They have the same thing. They were amazing pianists, but also they were really good composers. So I don't think it's divorced. I think it's the same. I think I see it as one of the many things that an instrumentalist could do at the same level, basically.
I understand that when you were growing up in Cuba, there was a folkloric music called Tabor Yuka. Explain that to my viewers, but also how did that music seep into how you started playing piano and guitar?
Yeah, Tabor Yuka is a Congolese tradition. It's actually believed to be like the oldest tradition in Cuba. The reason why it's the oldest, or at least the tradition that plays the drums the first time any tradition played the drums in Cuba, because that's a secular tradition, it's not a religious tradition, and then the drums are easier to construct than any other drums. So basically, they would use those drums in any festivity celebrations that they would do, the enslaved would do at the time. It is believed that Tabor Yuka is the first drum ever playing in the island. So now in my hometown, is the main focus where the Tabor Yuka the culture is at the moment. There was 9 different inquices, as they call in Africa, were established in Cuba, throughout Cuba, and out of those 9, there's only like 2 left, and they're both in Pinar del Rio, in my hometown. So when I was a kid, I used to see these people, playing this music, tuning the drums with fire, dancing. I didn't know what it was, but it was so exciting to see them because they have these big drums, and then we'd make these big fires in the middle of the street, and then we'd tune the drums that way. And that's how basically started, in my head. And then the reason why when I couldn't apply for guitar, I decided I want to go to percussion because that was all in my mind. Oh, I remember these things. I like these things. I didn't know what it was, but in the subconscious, like, okay, I'd rather, if I can do the guitar at this time, I want to do percussion then. And then that's influenced me. And then, of course, the whole thing about the rhythms and everything, it just gets in my way of playing and in my way of composing and my way of seeing music and experiencing music as well. Because I had that early childhood background in that music.
Would you say that coming to America, that's helped you establish your style and your technique? Or do you think that when you came here, there were some things about American musicians and some of the other rhythms of American culture that kind of infused how you developed your style?
I mean both. Here I just came with the inspiration and the desire to learn more about jazz. And then when I got here, even though when I was in Cuba, I was kind of doing something about jazz there, but when I got here, I realized that I didn't know what jazz was. And then I had to relearn everything from the ground up. Because I was familiar with Herbie Hancock's music, I was familiar with the Chick Corea's music and Miles and Train, but I wasn't familiar necessarily with Ben Western or Sidney Bechet or the roots of the music. So I had to really relearn all my things. I had to really go to school, the American school, talking to people and understanding this music at a much deeper level. So, and that shaped my way of playing, of course, because when I came here, I had an idea, how to play the piano and how I was approaching it with all this Cuban thing and all this mix of classical music and my love for jazz and this, but the love for jazz wasn't getting me that far. I needed to know more, wait, what is this music in particular? So that, of course, that shaped my entire way of approaching music and playing it.
You're teaching at Juilliard and also at Temple.
Manhattan School of Music.
And the Manhattan School of Music. What are some of the things that you are stressing and teaching the next generation of musicians? And are you happy with the next generation of musicians that are playing and carrying on this great, rich tradition of jazz?
I am thrilled with the next generation of musicians that are carrying the flag, if you will. When I talk to them, basically, it's just about being real. Being real. What I mean by being real is like really look at the roots of the music. Because this generation, the one thing is that they have access to everything, and since they have access to everything, sometimes they neglect going deeper than what they see in front of them. I teach them about the value of things, like the meaning of things. Like even when they listen to something, just listen at the deeper level than just listening for listening. But they're amazingly talented young musicians, and they're amazing, capable of doing anything. They have developed their craft at a super high level, and and then the only thing that I try to instruct them is just basically to go deeper, not at a playing level, not at a technical level, but at understanding that every tradition in music, Cuba, US, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Haiti, is all connected. Because the beginning of jazz was all connected to begin with. But of course, with generations and generations, people have lost that connections a little bit. And then that's basically what I'm trying to kind of like direct them to kind of like to be interested in understanding the connection between everything, because we all have the same roots. We all know. Everybody would tell you, oh yeah, we Africa. Everybody understand that this music a lot, or this music came from Africa, or was the root is in Africa, but they don't know how to articulate these things. So in order to do that, they have to go deeper and understanding. Okay, when they say Africa, to tell them, okay, Africa has, Congolese tradition, Yoruban traditions. They have people from Dahomey. They have people, there's so many different things. So sometimes people say Africa, and Africa is not like the U.S. When you say America, yeah, I get it. It's like a very unique culture. Like it's a big country, and then but Africa is a continent, that has so many different traditions, so many different everything. Languages, and that's basically what I'm trying to tell them a little bit, to show them a little bit, not to tell them, but to show them, like with examples of things. Listen to this, listen to that, introduce them to all these new things that they might not know.
Also, I'm looking at this gentleman behind you who I've interviewed here on the Pace Report a couple of times, Mr. Francisco Mela, who's from Cuba. Mm-hmm. How did you guys connect, and how did you guys meet?
We know for a long time. We know each other from Cuba since we were at school. Yeah, and we used to play together all the time in Cuba, like being young students there. We used to play a lot of stuff at the school, trying different things, trying new things. We were like that generation of pushing things and trying different things and getting in trouble, because Cuba at some point playing jazz was not a thing to do necessarily, especially when you're in an institution that is mainly based on classical music. And when you have an institution that a lot of my teachers were Russians, very narrow, excellent teachers, but in Russian classical music. But they were not really tolerant to any other scene sometimes that were not deemed by them as music. Like playing like an altar chord for them was like, what are you doing? That doesn't sound good. That's no music.
I was Russian teaching European music, but you had a very unique swag as far as percussive rhythms, and the music that comes from Cuba is much more flavorful than the European music that you were learning.
Well, I mean, I would say different though, because the music that is from Cuba, okay, there is the Afro-Cuban music and there is the Cuban music. So what is the Cuban music? There has a lot of influence of European music. Like the danzón is a very influence of, not Russian, but the French contradance, and it has a lot of things related to classical music. So the Cuban music and classical music has always been like very together. It's not strange. It's not a foreign thing. Of course, when you're talking about only Afro-Cuban music, yeah, it's mainly African and Cuban. But when you're talking about Cuban music, the danzón and the son and all these things has a very things related to classical music as well. So for us, it's common to have those things together. We didn't even see, at least I never see it as very different one from another. I always see it as, like it's music, and they all complement each other. Because where we took the African concept from the rhythm concept from African music. We took the harmony a lot of time from European concept. So and we created a blend of this music that produced what we know now known as Cuban music. So it's yeah.
Do you think that with your classical training, do you think that every jazz musician needs to study European music? Or do you think that at some point, like you said, when you came here to America, you had to learn the rudiments of American black music?
That's a very interesting question. That's a very loaded question. My answer to that is it wouldn't hurt. Like, if I'm a pianist, I do want to know, okay, what's the history of the piano? And the history of the piano was created within classical music. So there is a certain aspect of pianism, as you will, that I'm always feel attractive to know how to play Rachmaninoff, to know how to play Bach, or to know how to play all this music. I know there are people who will argue, like, just to focus on the jazz aspect, because there's a lot of great literature of jazz pianists in this country, big enough that you can just immerse yourself in that world. But the one thing is, like, every pianist you can think of that were our heroes, they all were really great pianists in classical terms as well. They can play a lot of music from the classical repertoire. So to say, like even Monk or anybody, like all these people who knew how to play classical music, to say learn Monk but don't learn how they learn, is kind of tricky for me. Like I when I see the piano, the instrument, I want to know about everything. I want to know who wrote, what people wrote about for this instrument, what other form of playing the instrument is. Because when I see music, I don't see music as just, oh, this is jazz, oh, this is classical music. I see it as music. And then I anything that is beautiful, that it informs me about the history of an instrument, I'm interested in. So I don't put any limitations on that.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at Lincoln Center here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank and congratulate the talented Elio Villafranca for his time. For more information for his upcoming tour dates and his club dates, please visit him online at eliovillafranca.com. I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at Lincoln Center for their warm hospitality. Also Scott Thompson for arranging my interview with Elio. Please visit my website, thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments, as well as like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace. Thank you.